Welcome to our deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring some really profound and surprisingly practical Buddhist teachings.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at excerpts from 5 different texts, all by Nagarjuna.
Okay.
So we've got the wisdom of Nagarjuna and causality and emptiness, the good-hearted letter.
Okay.
We've got the heart of interdependent origination.
Right.
And emptiness, the 70 stanzas.
Lots to cover.
Yeah. So think of this as your shortcut to ancient wisdom for modern living.
Well, these texts really do offer a fascinating roadmap for navigating the challenges of life and for cultivating a path towards greater wisdom and compassion.
I'm particularly intrigued by how Nagarjuna lays out the path. You know, he starts with this thing called the 10 non-virtuous actions.
Right.
And he categorizes them as actions of body, speech, and mind.
Yeah, and what's really striking is how this framework highlights the interconnectedness of our actions, words, and thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, ethical conduct, according to Nagarjuna, isn't just about what we do.
Right.
It's about cultivating a mindful awareness of all aspects of ourselves.
So killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, you know, those fall under actions of the body. And I think most people would agree those are pretty universally considered unethical.
Sure.
But then he includes things like slander, malicious speech, and even idle talk as actions of speech.
Right.
That makes you pause and think, right?
It does. It really challenges us to consider the impact of our words.
Yeah.
Even seemingly harmless chatter. Nagarjuna's point is that even these seemingly minor negative actions create negative karma.
Yeah.
Like this sort of ripple effect that impacts our own mental state and our relationships with others.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it hinders our progress on the path to liberation.
It's like he's saying that morality is the bedrock for everything else, you know?
Yeah.
Worldly success, inner peace, and spiritual growth.
Exactly.
It's not just about following rules,
Right,
but
yeah.
understanding that our actions, both big and small, shape our reality.
Absolutely. And that leads us to the 8 precepts, which offer a more demanding ethical framework,
Okay.
even for lay practitioners. These precepts provide a glimpse into the practices of dedicated spiritual seekers in ancient times.
Some of these precepts, like abstaining from high seats and beds, might seem a bit extreme for us today.
Yeah.
But I think there's a powerful lesson here about examining our attachments to comfort and luxury. What do you think?
I agree. It's a provocation to examine how these attachments might be hindering our own growth
Right.
and contributing to a sense of dissatisfaction. While we may not be able to strictly observe all 8 precepts all the time,
Yeah.
even experimenting with them can be a powerful practice in mindfulness and self-awareness.
So we've got the 10 non-virtuous actions to avoid and the 8 precepts to aspire to. But what about our relationships?
Yeah.
How do we navigate the complexities of human connection in a way that supports our ethical and spiritual development?
Well, Nagarjuna provides a fascinating framework for evaluating potential friends.
Okay.
He compares them to different types of mangoes.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more about these mango friends.
Imagine 4 types of mangoes.
Okay. Okay.
So some are beautiful to look at, but rotten inside.
Okay.
Others are appealing on the surface, but sour to the taste. Then there are those that look unappealing, but are actually sweet and delicious.
Right.
And finally, you have the perfect mango. Beautiful, sweet, and nourishing.
Okay.
Nagarjuna says we should seek out friends who are like that perfect mango.
So it's not just about finding people who share our interests or make us feel good temporarily.
Right.
It's about surrounding ourselves with individuals who inspire us to be our best selves,
Exactly.
who embody the qualities we aspire to cultivate.
He's reminding us that our relationships have a profound impact on our spiritual development.
Yeah.
You know, we should choose friends who support our ethical growth and encourage us on the path to liberation.
It's making me think about the company I keep and what kind of mango I am to my own friends.
Yeah.
And speaking of choosing wisely, Nagarjuna also has a lot to say about speech.
He does. He categorizes speech as pleasant, truthful, and wrong, emphasizing the importance of using our words to uplift and benefit others.
Right.
This feels incredibly relevant in our modern world, where communication is often so careless
Yeah.
and negativity spreads so easily.
I totally agree. It's a call to be more mindful of our communication, both online and offline. What we say has a real impact, not only on others, but on our own mental state and karmic imprint.
It's about recognizing the power of our words to create connection and spread kindness,
Yeah.
or to inflict harm and generate negativity.
Okay, so we've covered morality and relationships. Now let's talk about desire.
Okay?
Nagarjuna gets pretty real about the seductive nature of worldly pleasures.
He compares them to the kimbu fruit, which initially appears attractive and delicious, but is actually poisonous. It's a powerful metaphor for how we can easily get caught up in chasing fleeting pleasures that ultimately lead to suffering.
It makes me think about how we're bombarded with messages about what will make us happy.
Right.
You know, by in this product,
Yeah.
achieving this status, having this experience, but often the satisfaction is fleeting and we're left wanting more.
Yeah.
What are some modern-day kimbu fruits that we should be wary of?
Oh, there's so many.
Right.
Think about the endless scroll of social media, the allure of fast fashion, the constant pursuit of the next big thing. These can all be seductive traps that keep us chasing fleeting pleasures while neglecting genuine happiness and fulfillment.
It's a powerful reminder to be discerning about where we place our attention and energy.
Absolutely.
So how do we break free from this cycle of craving and dissatisfaction?
Well, Nagarjuna offers several practical techniques for managing desire.
Okay.
He emphasizes mindfulness of impermanence, recognizing that everything is constantly changing. He also encourages us to contemplate the body's impurity.
That sounds a bit intense.
It might sound strange at first,
Yeah.
but it's a way to deconstruct our romanticized view of the body
Okay.
and recognize its impermanent nature. These techniques might not be for everyone,
Right.
but they offer a powerful way to detach from clinging to fleeting pleasures and cultivate a deeper sense of contentment.
So it's about shifting our perspective, recognizing the impermanence of everything we cling to, and finding a more stable ground for happiness.
Exactly.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah.
From actions to speech to relationships to desire. It's all about cultivating a deeper awareness of ourselves and the world around us.
You're picking up on something crucial here.
Okay.
This awareness is what Nagarjuna calls right view,
Okay.
a way of seeing the world that leads to liberation from suffering.
And that brings us to what might be the most challenging concept of all emptiness.
It's a concept that often causes confusion, but it's at the heart of Buddhist philosophy. Emptiness isn't about nihilism or denying the reality of our experiences.
No.
It's a profound shift in perspective
Right.
that recognizes the interconnected and impermanent nature of everything.
So how do we even begin to wrap our heads around this idea of emptiness?
We'll dive deeper into this in the next section.
Okay.
But for now, think of it as a way of seeing beyond the surface level of reality.
Okay.
Recognizing that everything is in a constant state of flux and interconnectedness. Nothing has a fixed independent self.
This is definitely a lot to take in, but I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Yeah.
Morality, mindfulness, right view. They're all stepping stones on the path to understanding emptiness and ultimately to liberation from suffering.
Exactly. And this journey starts with recognizing the incredible opportunity we have as humans to engage in this kind of deep self-reflection and spiritual growth. Nagarjuna emphasizes this point beautifully by comparing obtaining a human birth to
Wait, don't tell me. Is it the tortoise analogy?
he compares it to a tortoise finding a tiny hole in a floating wooden yoke in the vast ocean.
Okay, that's some serious luck.
It's a powerful image, isn't it?
Yeah.
It emphasizes how rare and precious this opportunity for spiritual development truly is.
Right.
You know, he's urging us to make the most of this life by practicing the Dharma and avoiding actions that lead to suffering.
This is already so much to digest, and we've only just begun to scratch the surface.
I know, right?
I'm eager to dive deeper into the concept of emptiness
Yeah.
and explore how all of this connects to the idea of interdependent origination.
Me too. There's so much more to uncover in these texts.
Stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive, where we'll continue this fascinating exploration of Nagarjuna's teachings and their relevance for our lives today.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the wisdom of Nagarjuna.
That tortoise analogy really stuck with me.
Yeah.
It makes you realize how precious this human life is and how important it is to use our time wisely. But I'm still grappling with this concept of emptiness.
Yeah.
It feels so abstract.
It is a challenging concept, but also incredibly liberating once you start to grasp it.
Okay.
Remember, emptiness doesn't mean that nothing exists.
Right.
It's about understanding that everything is interconnected and impermanent. Nothing has a fixed inherent self.
So it's not about denying the reality of our experiences,
Right.
but seeing them from a different perspective,
Yeah.
recognizing their fluidity and interconnectedness.
Exactly. Think about a wave in the ocean.
Okay.
It has a form. It moves, it crashes on the shore. But can you really pinpoint the exact moment it begins or ends? Is it separate from the ocean itself?
That's a great analogy. The wave appears to have a separate identity, but it's ultimately inseparable from the ocean.
And just like the way everything we experience, our thoughts, feelings, possessions, relationships are constantly changing and interconnected.
Oh.
Emptiness helps us see through the illusion of solidity and permanence, which could be a source of tremendous suffering.
Because we cling to things as if they'll last forever.
Right.
And then we suffer when they inevitably change or disappear.
Exactly. By understanding emptiness, we can loosen the grip of attachment.
Okay.
And experience greater peace and freedom.
Okay. I'm starting to see the light a bit, but how do we actually apply this understanding to our daily lives?
Well, notice how Nagarjuna uses vivid similes and analogies throughout his text to convey these complex ideas.
Right.
Think about the mango friends, the poisonous kimbu fruit, the tortoise finding the hole in the yolk.
Right.
These images help us connect to profound truths in a way that's both memorable and meaningful.
It's like he's giving us mental tools to break down abstract concepts and relate them to our own experiences.
Precisely. And we can use this same approach to cultivate an understanding of emptiness in our own lives.
Okay.
Pay attention to the impermanence of everything around you.
Okay.
Notice how your thoughts and feelings come and go like clouds in the sky. Observe the changing nature of your relationships, the ebb and flow of your own energy.
So it's about cultivating a sense of mindful awareness of the impermanence of everything.
Yes.
But doesn't that make life feel meaningless if nothing lasts?
Not at all. In fact, it's quite the opposite. By recognizing the impermanence of everything, we can learn to appreciate the beauty and preciousness of each moment.
Right.
Without clinging to it.
Okay.
We can experience life more fully with greater presence and gratitude.
It's like instead of holding on tight, we're learning to dance with the flow of life.
Exactly. And this dance includes both joy and sorrow, gain and loss. Emptiness helps us navigate those ups and downs with greater equanimity and resilience.
Yeah.
It's not about becoming emotionless or detached from the world, but experiencing it with greater wisdom and compassion.
This is definitely a different way of looking at things, but I can see how understanding emptiness could be incredibly empowering. It's like it gives you a solid foundation to stand on amidst the chaos of life.
It does, and it allows us to approach challenges with greater clarity and understanding. Remember, Nagarjuna presented these teachings as a path to liberation from suffering.
Right.
And understanding emptiness is a crucial step on that path.
Okay, so we've explored morality, mindfulness, right view, and now emptiness.
Right.
It feels like we're building up to something even bigger.
We are, and that brings us to one of the most important and perhaps complex teachings in Buddhist philosophy.
Okay.
The 12 links of interdependent origination.
Okay.
It's often depicted as a wheel.
Right.
With each link representing a stage in the cycle of suffering.
I remember from the first part that it explains how ignorance leads to suffering, but I'm still fuzzy on the details.
Let's break it down. Imagine a chain reaction where each link is dependent on the one before it.
Okay.
It starts with ignorance, our fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of reality.
Okay.
This ignorance leads to mental formations, our habitual patterns of thinking and reacting. These mental formations then condition our consciousness.
Okay.
And so on.
So it's like a domino effect. One thing leads to the next, and ultimately we end up experiencing suffering.
Yeah.
Because we're caught in this cycle of ignorance and conditioned responses.
Exactly. But here's the key understanding. This cycle is the first step to breaking free from it.
Okay.
By recognizing each link in the chain, we can start to interrupt the flow of suffering and cultivate a path toward liberation.
It's like we're given a map to navigate out of the maze of suffering.
A map and a set of tools.
Right.
The teachings on morality, mindfulness, and emptiness we've been discussing are all tools that can help us weaken the links in this chain and ultimately break free from the cycle.
This is incredibly profound. It's like everything we've been talking about is suddenly clicking into place.
Yeah.
Morality helps us cultivate skillful actions. Mindfulness helps us become aware of our thoughts and patterns.
Right.
Right view helps us see the world with clarity. And emptiness helps us detach from clinging to the illusion of a fixed self.
Exactly.
All of these work together to dismantle the cycle of suffering.
Exactly. And that brings us to the question Nagarjuna poses throughout his teachings.
Okay.
What does this all mean for you? how can you apply these principles to your own life?
Right.
To cultivate greater peace, wisdom, and compassion?
It's a powerful question, and I think it's one that each listener needs to contemplate for themselves.
I agree, but the texts offer some guidance.
Okay.
They encourage us to choose our friends, wisely manage our desires skillfully, cultivate a deep understanding of emptiness, and ultimately recognize the incredible opportunity we have as humans to awaken to our true nature.
This is a lot to digest, but it's also incredibly inspiring.
It is.
It makes me want to be more mindful, more compassionate, and more dedicated to my own spiritual growth.
That's the beauty of Nagarjuna's teachings. They challenge us to examine our lives, our beliefs, and our actions, and to strive for greater understanding and liberation.
So before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, I want to pause and acknowledge the depth and complexity of what we've explored so far. From morality to emptiness to the 12 links of interdependent origination.
It's a lot.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. And there's one more layer we need to unpack.
Okay.
Some passages from the text that offer a glimpse into the social dynamics of ancient India.
Okay.
And shed light on how these teachings might have been applied in everyday life.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's delve into that in part 3 of our deep dive. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the wisdom of Nagarjuna. We've covered so much ground already: morality, desire, emptiness, the cycle of interdependent origination.
It's been quite a journey.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle I'm eager to explore. You mentioned that some of the texts offer insights into the social dynamics of ancient India.
Yes, and these passages can be particularly fascinating because they give us a glimpse into how these teachings might have been applied in everyday life, within the specific context of ancient Indian society.
Okay, so paint a picture for me. What kind of society are we talking about?
Well, keep in mind that Nagarjuna lived centuries ago in a society very different from our own greater. It was a hierarchical society with a strong emphasis on caste and social roles. Many of the texts we've been looking at were addressed to both lay practitioners and monastic communities.
Okay.
So they offer a glimpse into the values and challenges of both of those worlds.
That makes sense. So what kinds of social dynamics do these texts reveal?
Well, one theme that emerges is the importance of generosity, particularly towards those in need.
Okay.
There's a passage that mentions bestowing gifts upon monks, Brahmins, the poor, and friends.
Right.
And it's interesting to consider how this act of giving might have functioned within the social hierarchy of the time.
It makes you wonder about the motivations behind giving. Was it purely altruistic? Or did it also serve to reinforce social standing?
That's a great question, and it's something that scholars continue to debate. But regardless of the motivations, the teachings emphasize that generosity is a virtue that benefits both the giver and the receiver. It's a way to cultivate compassion, loosen the grip of attachment, and generate positive karma.
That reminds me of the teachings on desire and non-attachment we discussed earlier. It seems that generosity is a practical way to put those teachings into action.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the interconnectedness of all beings and recognizing that our own well-being is tied to the well-being of others.
Okay, so generosity is a big theme. What else stands out?
Well, there are also passages that address the dynamics of family and relationships, particularly the role of wives.
Okay.
And these passages can be a bit jarring to read through a modern lens. As they reflect the patriarchal norms of ancient Indian society.
Right.
Wives are compared to various figures, some positive, some negative. Queens, servants, thieves, sisters, even executioners.
Yeah, I can see how those descriptions could raise some eyebrows today.
It's important to approach these passages with sensitivity and historical awareness, while some of the language might seem outdated or even offensive by today's standards.
Right.
It's valuable to examine how social norms and expectations around relationships have evolved over time.
It also highlights the fact that Nagarjuna was speaking to a specific audience within a specific cultural context.
Exactly, and it's a reminder that while the core principles of the Dharma are timeless, their application in the world will always be influenced by the prevailing cultural norms and social structures.
So how do we reconcile those potentially problematic passages with the broader message of compassion and wisdom that permeates Nagarjuna's teachings?
I think it's about recognizing that even enlightened beings like Nagarjuna were products of their time and place.
Right.
They didn't exist in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Their teachings reflected the realities of the societies they lived in.
Yeah.
Our task as modern practitioners is to discern the underlying principles and apply them in a way that aligns with our own ethical values and understanding.
That makes sense. It's about extracting the timeless wisdom while recognizing the historical context.
Exactly. And I think it's also important to note that even within those seemingly rigid social structures, Nagarjuna's teachings offered a path to liberation for all beings, regardless of their social standing.
Right.
He emphasized the importance of cultivating virtue regardless of one's external circumstances.
Right. So it's not about conforming to social expectations, but about cultivating inner transformation that can ultimately lead to greater freedom and well-being.
Precisely. And speaking of inner transformation, there's one more passage that sheds light on this process.
Okay.
It's the analogy of salt and water. Nagarjuna says that a small amount of salt can easily change the taste of a small amount of water, but not a vast river.
That's a vivid image. What's the significance of this analogy?
It's a brilliant way to illustrate the impact of our actions on our overall state of being. He's saying that while even small negative actions can have consequences, those consequences are less likely to derail someone who has cultivated a strong foundation of virtue.
Right. Through consistent positive actions.
So it's not about being perfect all the time, but about the overall direction of our lives.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we all make mistakes, but the overall trajectory of our lives should be towards greater wisdom, compassion, and ethical conduct.
Yeah.
And the more we cultivate those qualities, the less likely we are to be swayed by small missteps or negative influences.
It's a reassuring message. It reminds us that we don't have to be perfect to be on the path to liberation.
And it encourages us to focus on building that strong foundation of virtue through our daily actions, our speech, and our thoughts.
Wow, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive, from avoiding slander to understanding emptiness to reflecting on ancient relationship dynamics. It's been quite a journey.
It has, and I think it's safe to say that Nagarjuna's teachings offer timeless wisdom that can benefit anyone seeking greater peace, understanding, and ethical guidance in their lives.
I couldn't agree more so as we wrap up this deep dive.
Yes.
I'd like to leave our listeners with one final thought.
If, as Nagarjuna suggests, even seemingly insignificant actions can have far-reaching consequences, what small but positive action can you take today to create a ripple effect of goodness in the world?
That's a beautiful challenge to leave our listeners with. Remember, even the smallest act of kindness can have a profound impact, not just on others, but on your own journey towards greater wisdom and compassion.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
Until next time, may your journey be filled with peace, wisdom, and compassion.